Let's talk about the meat and meat alternate component. We'll have an activity near the end of this section. For the meat alternate category, there are several changes. The first is that a meat alternate may be served in place of the entire grains component at breakfast up to a maximum of 3 times a week. Commercially prepared tofu now can be credited as a meat alternate. And yogurts that meet the new sugar limit, including soy yogurt, can also credit as a meat alternate. As part of the meal pattern, you can now substitute a meat alternate for the entire grain component for breakfast up to 3 times a week. For example, instead of toast, oranges, and milk, you could serve a hard-boiled egg or baked tofu with orange slices and milk instead. This new flexibility for breakfast will allow more variety for your menus. And remember, bacon is not a creditable meat in the USDA Food Buying Guide, despite being a common breakfast item. When serving meat alternates in the place of grains for breakfast, 1 serving of meat alternate is equal to 1 serving of grains. A cheese omelet with cheese and eggs and a serving of fruit and milk will now be creditable as a breakfast. Just as a reminder, a cheese omelet is a combination food and would require appropriate documentation, such as a recipe or CN label. You cannot split the meat alternate and grains components. If you're serving meat alternates in the place of grain, it must replace the entire portion. For sponsors who would like to serve tofu, note that the tofu will need to be commercially made in order to credit as meat alternates for child and adult meals. Soy links and sausages must have CN labels or manufacturer's product formulation statements showing that the item meets protein requirements. Tofu cannot be credited as part of a reimbursable meal for infants. For recipe ideas, go to the ODE CNP Meal Pattern and Menu Planning webpage for tofu recipes and ideas from the state of Wisconsin. Tofu can be purchased in many forms, including silken, soft, firm, and extra firm. Only firm and extra firm will meet the protein requirements for tofu. This is because commercially prepared tofu must be easily recognized as a meat substitute, meaning that they can't be blended up in a smoothie or soup, and because tofu must meet the protein requirements of 5 grams of protein per 2.2 ounces by weight. Additional resources on crediting tofu can be found on the ODE CNP Meal Pattern and Menu Planning webpage. Nutrition labels for all tofu served must be saved to verify that the tofu served meets protein requirements. Some types of tofu are non-creditable. These include soft or silken tofu, which are used to add texture or enhance nutrients in foods. Soft or silken tofu do not meet the protein requirements and are not a creditable option. Tofu noodles are also not creditable because they are not easily recognized as a meat substitute. Non-commercial tofu and soy products are not creditable. Yogurt has always been creditable as a meat alternate, but there's now a new sugar limit. Yogurt must now contain no more than 23 grams of total sugar per 6 ounces. This sugar limit will apply to all age groups including infants. When using yogurt on your menus, remember that it must be commercially made, not homemade, due to safety concerns. With the new meal pattern, soy yogurt will be allowed as a dairy-free option for children and adults, but not infants. Each 4-ounce serving will credit as 1 ounce of meat alternate for all meal patterns, including infant, child, and adult meal patterns. For adult participants only, yogurt can be used as a milk substitute once per day. Like tofu, there are many different types of yogurt products out there, but many of them will not be creditable. These include frozen yogurt, drinkable yogurt, homemade yogurt, yogurt-flavored products, yogurt bars, yogurt-covered fruits and nuts, and yogurt that is used in commercially prepared smoothies. There are 2 ways to figure out if your yogurt product meets the new sugar limit requirements. The first method is called the chart method. There is a yogurt sugar limit card on ODE CNP's meal pattern webpage that shows the sugar limits for multiple yogurt sizes. This yogurt sugar limit card is wallet-sized and can be printed. For the chart method, the first step is to look at your nutrition facts label. On the nutrition facts label, you will first want to identify the serving size. In this example that we have a 6-ounce container. Be careful when checking serving sizes, since the serving size may be different than the package size. Next, you'll want to find the total amount of sugars. This can be found under total carbohydrates. In this example, there are 19 grams of sugar. Finally, look at the yogurt sugar limit chart. In this chart, the calculation has been done for you already, and you can find the serving size. In this case, 6 ounces, and see that the sugar limits that would meet the sugar limit would be 23 grams of sugar. Is this yogurt creditable? Yes. With 19 grams, this yogurt would be below the 23 grams of sugar limit and would be allowed. There is a second method that can be used to find out if your yogurt is creditable for sugar content. USDA has established a threshold number, which is the maximum amount of sugars per ounce that is allowed for yogurt. If you happen to find a yogurt that does not come in the serving sizes listed on the chart, and you want to know whether it will be creditable, you will need to calculate the total amount of sugar per ounce to see if it's at or below the threshold of 3.83 grams of sugar per ounce. The threshold number was calculated by dividing 23 grams of sugar by 6 ounces of yogurt, which is the sugar limit established by the new regulations. Using the same steps as the chart method, you'll need to refer to the nutrition facts label and identify the serving size. Then you'll need to find the amount for sugars. In this nutrition fact label example, the serving is 4.5 ounces, and the sugar total is 16 grams. Next, you will have to calculate how much sugar is in each ounce by dividing the amount of sugar, which is 16 grams, by the serving size, which is 4.5 ounces. You get 3.55 grams of sugar per ounce. This is less than the threshold of 3.83. This means that this yogurt is creditable. Here's an important tip. Sponsors and providers must keep a copy of nutrition fact labels for all yogurt products that are served to their participants as part of a reimbursable CACFP meal. This documentation will help verify that your yogurt meets crediting requirements during a review. If a site is serving the same brand of yogurt but with different flavors, sponsors will need to keep the nutrition fact label for all flavors, since different flavors may have different levels of sugar content. Now that you have learned about the meat and meat alternates, let's practice calculating the yogurt sugar limits with a few questions. Look at the nutrition label for this yogurt on the right and compare it to the yogurt sugar limit chart on the left. Is this yogurt creditable? Yes, you can see that a 4-ounce serving size can have between 0 up to 15 grams of sugar. And at 15 grams, this 4-ounce example just made the cut. This is a creditable yogurt. Next, let's look at another nutrition label for yogurt. And this time, we'll use the threshold calculation method to determine if this is a creditable yogurt. Is it creditable? Yes, if you divide the sugar by the serving size, you divide 26 grams by 8 ounces to get 3.25. This is under the 3.83 threshold for sugar content. This is a creditable yogurt. We mainly covered yogurt and tofu today, but just as a reminder, nuts and seeds, dry beans and peas, eggs and cheese are all potential meat alternate options as well. In this section, we went over the changes to the new meal pattern for meats and meat alternates. Meat alternates may now be served in place of the grains component at breakfast a maximum of 3 times a week. Tofu now credits as a meat alternate, and yogurts meeting the new sugar limit, including soy yogurt, can credit as a meat alternate. The next section will focus on fruits and vegetables.